Hey everyone, this is Dr. Kevin McNulty. It's great to be with you. In the last 10 days, I have not been doing this very often because we have been ministering to people who are coming to our city, and this happens only once a year. We have like 30,000, 300,000. I'm not quite sure. It was, some say, closer to 300,000 motorcyclists that came in. And it's hard to say because they're in all over the directions and all over the city. And but it was interesting because we set up 2 tents to minister to them while they're coming to us. Now, you know, we have just launched a Project for America where we're going to all 50 states and training and launching a tent into all 50 states, just like we did in Russia and Eurasia and in Estonia and in all of the Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, all those regions about, and have seen just wonderful stories of over 1,000 cities that have been reached. And isn't that wonderful to know that's happening? I appreciate you, appreciate that this is part of, as you're watching, that if you're a partner, that all the fruit of all that work is your fruit. It's not just my fruit, it's your fruit. As you have sent me out and sent Leslie out, we continue to go out. Right now, we're focusing on you right here in the USA, and we're developing a plan to enrich you, to strengthen you with the concepts, the revelations, the insights that make us successful overseas. But when we still have big plans for Africa, and that we have a lot of countries in Europe that are waiting on us. So we're pretty busy, but we have you in our heart right now. And this time together, I just want to put a concept, I'm going to call this in the battle, because when you've become a born-again Christian, when you have discovered Christ, you know, you can be in a church for a long time and never know Christ. I counted how many days I was in church, how many days I went to church before I met Christ. And it was 5,060 days that I was in church before I met Christ. And you say, well, how can you go to church that many times and not meet Christ? Because I got religion. I got rules. I got works to do, you know, good works. And that's what I had for all those thousands of days in church. But God didn't give up on me, and I guess it was just my curiosity, my interest, but it really was Him that was reaching out to me, and that's where He met me when He spoke to me on a tennis court and said, read the Bible, read the Bible, read the Bible. And I told you that before, is that it all started there because I went to my opponent and I said, there's somebody I can't see talking to me. And I told him, read the Bible, and he said, come follow me. He took me to his car, showed me the Bibles and books, put them in a bag, and said, here, go read. But then that was the beginning of the adventure. And the adventure is this, not having religion, but having a knowledge of Jesus Christ in me. Having a knowledge that something happened in me. And that when I, after 2 weeks of reading that Bible, decided that there was something about it that I don't know. And I'm not connected to the writer of this book. And so I went outside. I said, Lord, I've read this book for 2 weeks. All I can say is I'm not connected. Something is right in it, but it's not right in me. So I reached out to Him and asked Jesus to reach into me. And at that moment, a connection happened, and a scrub brush kind of got in there, cleansed me up. And I said, whoa, what is that? I'm feeling good on the inside. And then out of the clouds, an opening occurred, and a voice came out of the clouds saying, I'll see you here. I go, whoa, boy, I was raised in religion, and we always would hope. We go, hope, 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 hope. But that's not what He was saying. He says, I'm going to see you here. You will be here with me. So now I know my past is gone. I know my future's secure in heaven. And then a third thing happened, and that's why I'm talking to you. Because this third thing is that I had this desire. All of a sudden, I had this desire that everybody in the world should know what I know. I never had that thought before, never dreamed of that, never desired that. And all of a sudden, I have something that I know the people need to have. And so I started a ministry, and what a wonderful time I've had in my life, over 40 years of on the road. And I'm speaking to people I can't see right now, but I've spoken to thousands of people that I haven't seen personally. Thousands. We've had up to 100, 150, one time 250,000 people in front of us. And we just opened up our hearts, shared the love of God, shared the purpose of humanity, shared the reason that you're here is to connect with God before you go to the next place. And giving them the opportunity as well as the knowledge that this Jesus is so good that if they're in pain, He's the healer. If they're sad, He's the joy. If they're afraid, He's the one who gives you strength and courage. And so all the things that have been limiting human beings now have been made changed and have been made available to human beings. And this is the exciting part about being Christian. That's Christ in. Just think of Christian as Christ in. Now God Himself lives in you and works through you. Because that was the third revelation that I had, is that what I have right now in this moment of prayer, outdoor under a tree, is what everybody in humanity should have and needs to have if they're going to heaven. So I wrote down some stories. I wrote down some things here. We must care about people and settle in our heart and in our mind that Jesus cares about us. Folks, I don't know, because I can't see you face to face, but if you say, well, I really don't know Jesus that way, you need to know Jesus that way. You need to know, hey, when my heart's beating, I feel Jesus in me. His heart is my heart, and His ideas are my ideas, and my ideas are His ideas, and we begin to walk this life, because that is a miraculous walk. Just like when Jesus was baptized and came out of the water, and all of a sudden everything's changed. Why? Because he was connected with the Father now for the mission that was on his life, and now he could expose that mission to the world, which is what he did. And so you've got a mission on your life. You have a destiny. You have a future. And only God and you know that future. And you say, well, I really don't know that future. Take the next step. Say, Lord, I'm going to take this step. Boy, I took a lot of steps that it looked like I could die in those steps. It looks like I could starve in those steps. It looks like I could be lost in those steps. And yet I walked through it all and continue to walk on those new steps. So, we are all evangelists. I want to bring out the evangelist in you today. We all have a miracle. We all have a miracle. We all have a book in heaven. In other words, when you go to heaven, if you're born again, you go to heaven, there's a book with your name in it. And isn't it wonderful? I had a pastor speak to me, and he said, Kevin, I got bad news for you. I said, what is it, Pastor? He says, well, Jesus took me to heaven. And He walked on me on this wide road. And I saw this group of people, and a small group of people, a couple thousand that were on my right. And I said, who are they? And Jesus says, those are your people. And then He walked on and saw a new group of people. And He said, who are they? He says, those are also your people. And He turned around the corner, and there was a vast army of people. And He says, who are they? He goes, they are all your people. And He says, who are they? I've never seen them. I've never been with them. And then He was brought back from heaven to earth. And He called me up a few weeks later and says, Kevin, I got some bad news for you. I said, what is it? He says, you work for me. And then He told me the revelation, in which he understood that the only way that he ever saw that many figures was in the ministry that I was doing around the world, which he was helping sponsor. And I hope you are sponsoring us as well, because we are representing you. And the fruit that you will see in heaven is the fruit that you did by sending somebody to reach that fruit. And so I do appreciate that. And I appreciate all that you are and all that you do. And I've got so many wonderful things here that I want to share with you. But we only have a certain amount of time. About 10 more minutes, and then we've got to wrap. But we must care about people. We all are evangelists. And I want to talk to you about, listen, I was training 17. This is so interesting, how your life can have a turn. Just something could happen, and it will turn your life. I was training 17 people on how to reach out from the way their world into the world around them. So many in America are saying, well, what if? What if? That's the big word in America. What if? What if God doesn't heal them? What if God doesn't open their eyes? What if they're sick and they leave sick? What if? And I said, listen, get the what if out of your life. What if is already settled. God has already settled how he views you. God is not turning back on you. And through you, he is reaching out to the world. And so he's never going to give up. He's never going to give up on the world because he has you on this earth. And when you're gone and we're all gone, then the world is in deep trouble because we are the voice of God on this earth. So I was training these 17 and none of them showed up. I was training them up in Detroit, Michigan. None of them showed. So I'm like, wow, that's unusual that all 17 would not come. And so I said, Lord, what are you doing? Are you changing my ministry? And right then I had a vision. Have you ever had a vision? Have you ever, God ever just gave you a picture and you were in that picture and you were doing something? God can do that and he will do that for you. I didn't plan on it at all. I just asked him a question. Are you changing my ministry? And I had this picture of me, downtown Detroit, standing on top of a 4-foot walkway. And next to me was the statue of George Washington. And behind that was a church. And so I'm in this place in downtown, and there's thousands of people walking past that place to go to a festival, a food festival. And I said, well, I saw myself standing there preaching. And so I said, the only way to know if this is God is I've got to go up there. See, people, sometimes you just have to follow that idea, that unction that's inside of you to know, is it God or isn't it God? And you say, I don't say what if. It is or it isn't. And either way, I'm okay with him. And he's okay with me. So I got up there, opened up the Bible, started preaching. And then after preaching a while, about 75 people gathered close and they were listening. And then one of them yelled out, who gives you the right to speak to us? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? After all, I didn't ask any pastor. I didn't ask for any permits. I didn't ask the person who ran the church in that area. I didn't ask anybody for the right to do this. And then all of them are looking at me saying, yeah, who gives you the right? And so I just said, Mark gives me the right. And they said, what? I said, Mark gives me the right. What? I said, Mark 16 says, go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature. And so Detroit is part of that world, and I am preaching that gospel to you. And they all looked at me and they said, oh, okay, as long as Mark said it, we'll listen. And my first lady who got born again that night, and she'd been going to church ever since. And over the years, I spent 3 years on that wall preaching every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I wanted to reach out to that city as best I can, and I did. And it was an exciting adventure. You have your wall to stand on. You have your city. You have your place. And don't forsake the day of small beginnings where you are. And so I'm going to tell you one more story. I know you probably want more, but I'm going to tell you one more. And I'll just put this into the memory so that if it ever happens to you, you can say, yeah, what happened to Kevin happened to me too. Well, we started the 100 tents. Can you imagine? We are the largest tent ministry in the world. We started the 100 tents that are moving across Eurasia, Russia, Latvia, Lithuania, Albania, down there into Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, and all across the underbelly of Russia. And so when we started that, we just started with one tent, and we went to Belarus. That's where we started. And in Belarus, it's a city where people were dying from the plague. They were dying from this disease because of this explosion that occurred on the edge of Ukraine, and that was a terrible nuclear explosion. That all that basically poison came across the boundaries into Belarus. I didn't even know that when I was there, that this thing was totally contaminated. I didn't find out until after we started laying hands on the sick, and all the children had all these red. They were red all up and down their arms, and I'm like, wow, what kind of disease is this? All the children are red, and I'm praying for them, and we're getting miracles happening. We see some blind eyes. We see all sorts of cripples letting down their canes and their crutches, and I'm like, well, the only thing I haven't seen is the redness, and I don't know what this is. And then I found out that this was part of the red zone. It's illegal to have a Geiger counter in this zone. So I've got all these thousands of people gathering, and no one told me that this was already contaminated region. And because when I found out, when I said, okay, we're going to go baptize you all. And there were thousands that had to be baptized. And they all said, no. I said, we're going down to the river to baptize you. They all said, no, 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 no. I mean, what's the matter? Are you chicken? Are you afraid of the river? I won't let you drown. And then someone told me, this is a contaminated zone, and that water in the river is contaminated. So I had to find a pool inside of a state room where I could baptize everybody. Well, it was a surprise to me, though, but I was learning. And some people knew, even overseas, what was happening in the region where I was. And Kenneth Copeland sent a truck of food to us. I mean, we didn't have any food. There were no restaurants had food because everything was contaminated. So we were just like, well, I don't know, we're just going to have to not eat while we're here because everything is contaminated, including the food. So this was like, I don't know, 2 weeks. But we could handle it. We figured we could handle it. And then this truck rolls in and with greetings from Kenneth Copeland and the food for us to survive and our team to survive. And we spread that food as far as we could, but we had to keep enough to survive while we were there. But it was a blessing. And I'll tell you what, God's got a surprise for you in your future. Don't ever let the circumstances or whatever catastrophe might have happened to your past, don't ever let it stop your future. That was the beginning of 100 tents across Eurasia. That's the beginning of 1,000 cities saved. That's the beginning of a whole category now of Christian supernatural preachers that are now moving across all those countries, states, and areas. And so, listen, whatever you start, don't ever be discouraged with it or disappointed in it. Let's start it and let it grow. Hallelujah. And I love you. I want you to know that we have books for you. The 12th Chair is a great book that will really help you. Leslie I just read 4 of her books. She has 4 new books out there. I want you to encourage you to ask for the books. Or go to McNultyMinistries.com or go to ChristianAdventures.com and you'll see the products that can help you. And I'm so busy right now. I've got 10 new books I'm working on, and I want to give them all to you. So we love you. Keep in touch. Let me know what you just found out. There must have been one nugget that you got today that helped you. And let me know what that nugget was. Let me know if you want me to come to your church, in your city, in your state. We will help and we will bring the knowledge of tent ministry, and maybe your church will be reaching your state through a tent with you behind that, helping it happen. God bless you. We love you. Talk to you soon.